COVID. Yeah, like I don't think I've had popcorn since COVID started. It's like you put your hand in. I'm ready for popcorn. Right. I'm all for it.
Everybody ready?
Wait a second.
So we got everybody's here. Yeah, it looks like Margaret's up upper left.
I'm here.
Hi, Margaret.
Hey there.
Hi, Sam.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted.
Hey, Antoinette.
Somebody out there's got background noise.
Yeah, somebody's not muted.
I'll turn mine off.
Is your mic on?
Everybody's mics on up here. Gonna be a long meeting.
It's reverbing. I can hear it.
Okay.
We got everybody muted?
You wonder if there's a delay.
Okay, I think I got it. Okay. You ready?
Thank you.
Thank you. Call to order, Planning Commission. Today is Wednesday, April 27th, 2022, just about 6:30. Can we have a roll call, please?
Philip Vanderdale.
Bob Ganesi.
Katie Souls.
Parnell Quinn.
Catherine Trotter.
Jean Walter.
Margaret Bowles. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And Sam Brewer.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So now we need a motion.
Actually, before we open the public hearing, I wanted to say a couple words if I could. So I wanted to let everybody know that this will be my last planning commission meeting for the town of Fraser. After 18 years, I am heading in a different direction. And this is also Jean Walter's last meeting as the chair. She's been with the Fraser Planning Commission for 12.
Yeah.
And she's been chair for a long time.
Since Philip's been mayor.
So that's-
No,
6 years.
6?
Yeah.
Seems like 10, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to extend the town's appreciation for your commitment to the town and all the hard work that you've done. And I want to say thank you to this planning commission and past planning commissions as well. It's been a long road and I have lots of passion for Fraser still, but I wanted to thank you very much, Jean, for everything you've done for the town.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thank
thank
you
you.
both.
Yeah.
Thank you,
you.
Catherine.
Yeah.
You're gonna be missed.
So Ed, I didn't know if you wanted to introduce, the town will be contracting with Baseline Consulting for interim planning, perhaps long-term planning. And there's one member of the company here tonight, and there are several on the Zoom call. So I thought Ed might want to introduce you to them at this point in time.
Thank you for that, Catherine. And thank you, Jean, for your service with the Planning
Thank you.
Commission all these years. I'm Ed Cannon, the town manager. With Catherine's departure, we have reached out to Baseline Planning Services. to kind of carry the ball during this absence of Catherine. We've been working with Baseline now for this is our second week of having them on board. We're going through some transition. We have the entire team on Zoom, and we have Ben is also with us. He is the primary point of contact, but our primary contact will be Julie with Baseline. We have a 3-member team assigned to Fraser. Just to let you know, it takes 3 people to do Catherine's job. So we're excited to have them on board and help us through this period and make sure that we can keep this process going. Ben, do you want to say a couple of words, maybe introduce your team in more detail?
Sure. Good evening to the commission. Happy to be here. My name's Ben Thurston. I'm the planning director with Baseline Engineering. We're a civil engineering survey and planning firm, and I lead a team of 9 planners and 2 landscape architects. And we do both private work, development work, and also a lot of contract planning and contract engineering, for that matter, for municipalities all over the metro area and beyond. Our longest term municipal client is the city of Blackhawk. We've been with Blackhawk since 2008. And so my team is all online. Julie Esterl, Alyssa Rivas, and Ryan Helly. They're all planners, and Julie will take the lead. She's been in Blackhawk since she's been with Baseline in 2016, I think she started. So she's been with Blackhawk for a long time, and she's going to bring a lot of great organizational skills to this position to lead our efforts and coordinate our efforts here. And then the bulk of the actual casework will be done by Alyssa and Ryan. So thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So can we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And with that, I'll turn it over.
Okay, great,
for
thank
your
you.
last
The last public hearing.
presentation of your
Yeah.
public hearing.
Gonna miss you when you're gone.
So for the record, I do have proof of publication that the legal was in the paper 14 days in advance of tonight's hearing. I have also received back from the applicant the return receipts for the certified mailings to the property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. And we do have the whole team here, which I'm sure Greg is going to introduce after I do my brief presentation. But this is a public hearing for the preliminary plat and site plan for a project over at 406 Xerox Street and 315 Fraser Avenue. This is the former One Love property. They had 2 structures on there that were recently demoed in the last year. The project is called Ghostlig on Main, and I'm sure their team will explain how they came up with that name and what that means. Before I kind of dive into some of the nitty gritty of this, I just wanted to let everybody know that we've been working with this team for, I don't know, 6-8 months, a year. It's been quite a while, and it's really been a pleasure to work with all of you guys. So I wanted to kind of say that in the onset. We appreciate the time that they've spent with the town staff, both before they went under contract, before they purchased the property. They've done a lot of research in terms of reviewing the downtown strategic plan that the town did back in 2018, and have come forward with a project that I think meets a lot of the vision that the community was involved in with the downtown strategic plan. So, and we're also seeing kind of some options that were incorporated into our code back in 2018 as a result of the downtown strategic plan. So it's really exciting that we're actually moving forward with implementing some of the density bonuses that we have incorporated into the code. So, and, you know, the town has has, it's been a long time coming for this activity and redevelopment to happen over there. And again, I credit that strategic plan because that allowed the town to pump $1 million with the help of CDOT into the downtown area with additional sidewalks and crossings and access management, which the town, there was no access management before the medians were put in there. So it's been a long time coming, and it's a very exciting time for the town of Fraser. So, and just wanted to mention that this is being processed as a major subdivision. The land development code requires that for if you create 5 or more lots or units, it kind of pushes it into a major subdivision. So although the applicant is not proposing to actually subdivide this into condos or townhomes, the idea is to create 2 buildings with rental units above the retail adjacent to 40 and then in the back. So again, I just wanted to clarify that because I think it's confusing for some people saying that it's a major subdivision. But that's a requirement of the code. So the applicant is proposing to build, again, 2 units. One's going to be adjacent to Highway 40. That's going to be 100% retail, commercial on the ground floor with 10 rental units above that the building that is adjacent to Highway 40. And then there's going to be a second unit that faces Dock Suzie, which will have parking on the ground floor and then 20 rental units above that. They've indicated in their narrative that the project aims to deliver restricted low-income housing units and attainable market units to provide for rental. 10 above in the back, sorry,
Right.
and 10 above in the front. Did I say 20?
Total. You said 20.
Yeah, 20
20
total. I'm glad you're listening. So this is in the business district with the Riverwalk mixed use overlay district on top of that. And typically in the business district, you're allowed to do 20 units to the acre or 1 unit for every 2,178 gross feet of square footage. And with the Riverwalk mixed use overlay district, this is where the density bonuses have been incorporated into this overlay district and also the Victoria Village one. So specifically in the Riverwalk mixed use district is the density of 20 units to the acre in the underlining business district is allowed to increase with either incorporating 100% of commercial into the ground floor, or if you do 20% of the units are attainable housing, 80% AMI. And when we initially sat down with these guys, we talked, is it going to be two phases? Is it going to be 1 phase? Now they've decided it's going to be 1 phase, but how we looked at this project was we pretty much divided that property into 2. And we looked at the density bonuses because they were asking for 2 different density bonuses that meet the criteria that I just mentioned, but it's separate criteria. So the one adjacent to Highway 40 with 100% of commercial on the ground floor, the code allows an increase to 40 units to an acre, which, I mean, if you're interested, it is instead of 1 unit for every 2,178, it's 1 unit for every 1,089 square feet. So they actually could do 13 units in that front by doing 100% commercial on the ground floor. So in the rear unit, with the incorporation of 20% of the 10 units being deed restricted, which would be deed restricted rental, which would be a modification. And Antoinette, the town clerk, and I have discussed this. We do have a deed restriction program, but that's mainly for sale product. So this would be a modification to that. And we're kind of working through the kinks as we move through this process right now. But with the incorporation of 20% affordable housing, that actually allows 60 units to the acre, which again, if you're interested, it's 1 unit for every 726 square feet. with a possibility of 19 units there. And again, they're proposing 10. But, you know, when you talk about this density bonus, you also need to keep in mind all of the rest of the development standards, the parking, the open space. So, yeah, exactly. So there's another portion of the code in conjunction with the density bonuses that if you're doing a mixed use like this project adjacent to Highway 40, the residential units cannot exceed 75% of the gross land area. And they've met that as well. So parking is something that, you know, the town has talked about for a long time. And before we did our code overhaul in 2018, we had just prior to that reduced our parking regulations, kind of a trend that's happening all over the Rocky Mountain West, really. So we didn't really change the parking regulations much when the code was overhauled in 2018. But I wanted to remind you that we did have a section in the code, which I provided that link in the packet, which is a link to modification of parking space requirements. And I don't know that I need to read them because I'm sure you guys have gone through the code and studied them yourself. But there are several options that the town allows as an incentive to reduce some of the overall parking. For instance, it's proximity to the transit route. It's for larger parking areas. The town allows 80% to be the 10 by 20 requirement and 20% to be reduced to 9 by 18. And there are also some modifications in there to allow for on-street parking to meet the requirement of the on-site parking. And, you know, the town, the planning commission, the board spent a lot of time reviewing that. And we specified the area in the code that allows for the owner to use the on-street parking. And it was in areas of the older part of the downtown where we knew that the lots were really small. And if we didn't allow for some kind of flexibility in the code, it was going to limit our redevelopment opportunities in that area. So the front building requires 15 parking spaces based on the breakdown of the number of built bedrooms in those 10 units above the commercial. The rear building that faces Doc Suzie requires 14 spaces for a total of 29 spaces. And then the commercial requirement is 1 10 by 20 for every 400 square feet of commercial. So that brings the total required for the project for 39. And again, as we were kind of moving through all of this, we talked about, you know, should these guys try to use all of the modifications to the requirements, or should they focus on maybe one or two? And in the end, we thought that it was best to just kind of use the on-street parking and not try to, you know, squeeze everything out of it. And I mean, because obviously they're interested in providing as much parking as they can for the project, for the success of the project, for the commercial and residential. Let's see. If you took a close look at the plat, there was a section of Fraser Avenue that was vacated back in 2001. And then if you looked at the Doc Suzie side, there was, it was basically a land swap, which was done, I believe, in conjunction with the Town of Fraser paving project back in 2001. So, you know, we've looked at all that stuff. I've spent quite a bit of time with Mike Hervin, who was previously involved in some of the survey work for these guys. And that's what we've concluded. It was to allow for the drainage swales on those side. So it was approximately, you know, 1,500 square feet that was vacated on one side. And then the property that was, of course, owned by the Claytons, they deeded that same kind of comparable size of 1,700 square feet back to the town. So that's what some of those strange little jogs are on there. And so I did want to point out that, so some of that parking that they're showing that is along Fraser Avenue is actually because of this vacated right of way, this 1,500 square feet. Part of that on-street parking, if you will, is actually on part of their property. And then some of those spots extend to the drainage swale. Let's see, what else? Some of the site plan was kind of morphing a little bit since the submittal came in. So we need to make sure that when this comes back for final plat, the civils match up with the site plan, because we were kind of readjusting stuff at the last minute, trying to accommodate kind of a different configuration for the parking, which we kind of talked back and forth, which we thought would work better. And also sidewalk widths, which, you know, are going to be pretty important in that area. And that's another thing to point out. And we kind of had this discussion recently when Barry Young's project came through, his barrel room project back in October. And that is, you know, you're going from what's existing out there. So this paved street with drainage swales on either side. And it's, you know, where as these parcels are redeveloping, you know, we're going to have to, at some point, the town move from what's out there right now, which was the cheapest thing the town could afford back in 2001 with no sidewalks, to more of a curb and gutter, and probably eliminate those drainage swales and a whole new plan and profile for that. So the other piece that we're kind of trying to work with the applicant on is undergrounding some of that overhead line. Again, the town of Fraser has a capital improvement for its sewer replacement in the alley between their property and the distillery. And so in conjunction with burying that line and moving forward with the sewer replacement, we're trying to do that kind of at the same time. And we're kind of working together with Mountain Parks Electric on seeing how far and what the limit to that overhead undergrounding is going to be. But again, this is all part of like the growing pains of redevelopment opportunities. And as I've preached to these people on the town board is, you know, you're not going to get the private investment without the public investment. And, you know, we got to get those lines undergrounded. So, you know, again, that we're going to require a construction guarantee agreement in conjunction with this application and before the building permit gets issued. We want to confirm that the exterior lighting is dark sky compliant. And because this is a major subdivision, the code does require park and school impact fees, which need to be dealt with prior to final plat recordation. And there were several agency review comments in here that the applicant needs to address. I know they've been working with a lot of these agencies. I think that we've had some back and forth between some of the town attorney's comments, and I think those are kind of in a good place. They're working through Mountain Parks Electric comments. You know, most of the other agencies didn't really have any major comments. We did receive I had a call and an email from an adjacent property owner who lives at 404 Dock Susie. And those comments were emailed out to you guys, I think yesterday, maybe. Also sent over to the applicant. And we did provide them with the drainage report that was not in the packet, but was submitted. And I think the applicant's team is ready to address some of those. I don't think they're here tonight. I don't think they were able to make it, but we definitely want to have additional conversation with those people to make sure that they feel comfortable with their concerns have been met. I think that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Greg.
Sorry. So I'll go ahead and start and just say thanks again to Catherine. Like she said, this was really a team effort between our team and the town. And, you know, we couldn't have gotten to where we are now without the year's work we've had up until now. I think when we first met on the project, you know, I grew up coming to Grand Lake in the summers, skiing Winter Park my whole life. So we've always loved the valley and Fraser specifically. So when we found the site, we were beyond excited to have such a premier location in town. And, you know, when you're looking at the code and at a potential site, you look at okay, what does the code say? Okay, it really favors townhomes. It really, you know, and then we said, all right, let's meet with the town. What should we put here? What do you guys want to see here? And the resounding answer from everyone across the board and people on our team is, you know, we need more retail, more restaurants would be great. We want workforce housing, we have a massive problem. So we really worked with the team to develop a solution to meet those two needs. And I'm really proud of it. And I think a lot of us are. But so I'll go ahead and just introduce the team who's going to speak after me. Peter Nelson's our architect. Krista, also our architect on the project. Kevin's my partner and developer on the project. Kevin Rifkin, Krista Clanky, Peter Nelson. Kevin Beccarelli is our civil engineer on the project. Also has a team underneath him that's been really helping out and will help answer that drainage question. And then Thomas Elliott's our general contractor on the project, who can help speak to kind of how our construction process should limit sort of the noise and size and scale that one might think comes with a project like this to such a kind of small area. But yeah, again, I just wanted to say thanks to Ed and Catherine and the other people who aren't with us anymore, Adam and Russell. But yeah, we had a great time getting to where we are, and we're really proud of what we're putting forward and think it's really gonna achieve those two goals of workforce housing and retail on 40, establishing a barrier. And yeah, we hope you guys like it. So I'll hand it over to Kevin, and then I'll put up some pictures on the Zoom meeting too for everyone to see.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And thanks again, Catherine. I know we're probably going to beat the dead horse on thanking you when every single person comes up here. So we appreciate everything you've done. I'll start off. I know the name is extremely confusing, and I will probably butcher it, even though it was my idea. So I'm going to go with KOS, K-O-S. So it's a Norwegian word that is the feeling of well-being that you get when you gather with a community. And when we saw this project and this parcel of land, and Fraser in general, we feel like that's what we want to create. So we've been looking, we've done a ton of projects in Denver and kind of around the country, and have been looking to get into the Fraser market, really from our history here. Now our parents both spend a lot of time up here, and we spend a lot of time up here, and wanted to do something that actually has a positive impact. So when we were looking around, obviously everyone here knows there's a ton of development going on, and it's very easy right now, right, to build townhomes. And that's something that I don't think personally the town needs more of. So when we saw this site, we were really excited, as Catherine mentioned, about what's already gone on here. There's a new crosswalk across the street, the sidewalks from the 2017-2018 master plan. The fact that it's a true transit-oriented development, which you don't really see much of. And all these things combined with looking at the zoning and the opportunity really got us excited. So I think it was about a year ago, we met with the town and started talking about what makes sense on this site. And the resounding answer was, all right, we need more rental units and we need commercial. And the master plan for the community really reflects that, right? So having the commercial space on 40 plus the density bonuses that are in there really paved the way for the opportunity for a project like this. So as we moved forward, I mean, I'll tell you, the site is a feat of engineering, how we were able to fit the parking, the units, the snow storage, and managed to get an 8-foot sidewalk in the last few minutes of this last quarter of the game. So we're really excited about that. And Greg and I have gone, and the group here have gone back and forth. I mean, if you look at the first iteration of the plan to where it is now, it's pretty astounding how much it's changed. And really looking at what the ability this gives us, the town of Fraser, and all the neighbors is really exciting to us. I mean, from the retail with patios on both sides for outdoor space is we think is going to be super attractive to restaurants, to some of the plans we have for the units. One of the things that we'll touch on is designing a really efficient unit that's versatile, right? So this could be rented by a couple, by a family, by a few roommates. So there's a lot of use cases for it. the other things we put in that we really enjoy doing for a town is innovating, right? So one of the, I think the coolest features on this is each unit has an outdoor gear storage locker. So I know everyone here is used to seeing mountain bikes on balconies. We've designed something that you can securely store your mountain bike kind of out of sight, your skis, whatever it might be. So overall, oh yeah, and the one thing I would hit on is we don't want these to become short-term rentals.
Hold on for just a minute. It's gonna load 3 times.
That's fair.
That was one. It's too hot to close the door.
That's fair.
Okay, I think you're good.
All right, just
Thank
two.
Just 2.
And so we really don't want these short-term rentals. I think we followed very closely on some of the issues plaguing the valley. And one of them is that you can go buy a home right now and then turn it into a hotel and probably be more profitable. So as we're going through the design phase and everything else, the other side of the business is the management. So these will all be 12-month leases. And that's really important to us. And one of the clauses we'll make sure are in the leases is that they're not allowed to sublease to anything shorter than a certain period of time for short-term rentals. So overall, we feel like this is a great project and really are super excited. And that's something I think you don't get in the development world, is something that does good for the town and actually can do good for developers as well and everyone. So that's where we really landed, is we're hoping this is kind of the accumulation of all that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Peter, who is the visionary behind the architecture. So Peter, go ahead.
My name's Peter Nelson, and for those that I haven't met, I've lived in the Fraser Valley with my family for 23 years, and I'm a resident of Fraser 20 years. And I wanted to thank, again, Catherine and the town for helping us get to where we are. And I want to thank, Bison Real Estate for selecting us to help them with their vision for this centerpiece in downtown Fraser. Very exciting project. And I'm very thankful that I have Krista Clanky, Fraser native, helping me with this project. So I'm going to really turn it over to Krista, and she's going to talk about the how we came to where we are and explain the project.
Hi, I'm Krista Clanky, and feel very privileged to work with Peter, and I'm glad he called me on this project because I have a close connection to the town. I'd like to be a part of how it shapes up. And what I appreciate about this project is that last year I participated in the mural festival and rode my bike around town with my kid and just thought, man, this place could be so cool to walk. And so then when a project not too long after came along where it's speaking to that, creating a walkable community, and the fact that we're pushing the retail to the street to create a commercial street front, very traditional, but very appealing to people. And then also having housing there. So people are engaged in that area and built-in consumers as well. But one main thing that was very much appreciated about the development of this project is Peter and I approached it very much from the aspect of what do we want to see? What type of housing could we live in and like living in? And Greg and Kevin were receptive to everything along the way. And not only that, they too approached the project the same way. What type of housing? And everyone, the conversation always revolved around, well, I used to live in an apartment that was like this, or I lived in a place that was like that. And it was pretty much everyone coming together, creating an apartment that was very pleasing to everybody. So not only are they providing 2-bedroom condos, 3-bedroom condos with families in mind, which is a rare thing to accommodate a family renting, but they also put 2 bathrooms in every single unit. which is amazing if a family is renting or if you have a million roommates. So we appreciate very much that they were willing to put the extra money forward towards really nice apartments. In addition to that, the overall building, they could have been a box with very limited siding, very limited fenestration, and very affordable to build and maximizing one's profit. But it was important to them to create a centerpiece for the community, building off of the type of commercial that is in the community right now, primarily being the distillery. So designing a building that works with that current design already and building off of it. And then working with the site. So not completely filling it in, but also creating inviting outdoor space, having patios so people can drive by and go, man, that place looks amazing. I want to go in there. And not only that, but with creating 2 separate buildings, creating patios, creating decks and storage space, trying to be cognizant of how people use space and how to keep that space visually appealing to all people engaging with that area. And then taking advantage of open space that is there, not only because it's required for snow storage, but also creating a pocket park. So not only having snow storage, but in the summertime, putting benches out, having bike racks, planting trees, inviting the general public to engage with that space. And there was one more point I was going to touch on, but murals. Because we have our art program and they're going to have some wall space and they want to engage in the community in that regard as well. So doing everything that can be done to not just have a big, blocky, efficient development that oftentimes we've become complacent with and accustomed to seeing. They're really trying to make this a jewel in the center of Fraser, and knowing that this is the starting point for the type of development that's coming down the road.
Thanks, Krista.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Elliott. I'm with PG Arnold Construction, and I too am very excited to be part of this project. I'm a resident of Fraser, and just looking forward to be part of a project that is a staple for our downtown. What I'll talk about is a little different than everybody else. I realize that construction is seen as an inconvenience to most people. I don't get that. I love loud noises. So, but I do understand that it can be just an inconvenience for other folks. So one of the greatest ways to mitigate that is speed, to get in there and get out as soon as we can. So some of the planning that we've done for this project is to do panelized framing. So when you see this project starting to go up, the exterior structure is going to fly. All of the exterior and interior walls are going to be built off-site in a factory, shipped up here, and essentially put up like an erector set. So we will be, if we break ground in July, we'll be completely dried in and only working on interior work by Thanksgiving. And so throughout the winter, there will be minimal impact on the remainder of the town. We also see a safe job site is a clean job site. So cleanliness is one of our core tenets, and we want to be as good as neighbors as we can. So we will do everything we can to keep streets clean, the public safe, not only our workers safe and our clients safe, but just to keep the streets open and clean and just have minimal inconvenience on the town and our neighbors. So thank you.
Great. Well, with that, we want to open it up to discussion, questions, anything we can answer. And we will turn it back over to you all.
Were you guys going to show some slides, please?
Yeah. That'd be good. Yeah. Are you able to get the slides up? Thought they were up the whole time.
Sorry,
Kevin, no problem.
Yes.
While we're waiting for the slides to come up, I've got a quick question for you. Since these are going to be apartments for rent, would you manage your own rental units, or are you going to have a management company do that?
It's a great question. We are in the process of vetting local management companies to see if they have the capability. Right now, we are in flux of self-managing versus a management company. One of the things that we've experienced in the past with management companies is not selecting the right one. And we want to make sure we do that. So not a definitive answer yet, but likely we will have a third-party manager doing at least some of the management on the maintenance side, and potentially all of it with the leasing. The one thing I would add there is that I think we missed on the overall project is we are working with one of the larger employers in the Valley on a bulk of the units on a master lease for their employees. So for us and for them, that's a great win because it would be purely employee housing for that employer. And the employer would actually subsidize the additional housing to make it extremely affordable for that group. So if that's the case, that would take a significant leasing risk off our plate.
In that case, would the corporate client that would be leasing this substantial number of units be responsible for putting quality tenants in the units? In other words, that would be usually the responsibility of your leasing manager company to make sure that you don't get bad tenants in there to tear up your building. So would that become the corporation's responsibility then to you?
It would become their responsibility with our oversight. So in the larger lease,
I'm going to stop that line of questioning right here because this public hearing is about land use and zoning. They don't have to answer questions about the future management property or the quality of tenants that are, so excuse me, Bob, but
Fair enough.
let's
I
get
was
back
just
on track
responding
to the
some of the
public
things they said in
hearing.
their presentation.
Public hearing for planning, which is land use and zoning.
Kevin, do you want to answer the drainage?
It's kind of totally out of context with everything Krista just said. I'm gonna get to it.
Okay, we can. We'll open it up to other questions, then as it naturally occurs, draining.
So
I guess, yeah, we can talk. Can anyone hear me on the Zoom? If I'm talking to the-
Do you want to stand up, Greg?
I can stand.
If you
get your
can.
microphone.
Here you go.
Then you can make it go to the slide. Yeah. Thanks. So this is just a watercolor meant to show how the project will kind of fit in with the surrounding area. Don't take everything color-wise shown here for exactly what it's going to be, but what we really wanted to create here was a space that's welcoming to both the tenants and also to the general public. So you can see the retail facing Highway 40. Again, this is looking from the southwest corner, so looking east. So you have all of the retail space along Highway 40, patio space on the south end, and there'll be another patio space on the north end. So we're confident we'll get good restaurant tenants attracted to that space. And then a little pocket park, like Krista mentioned, right in the middle between the two buildings. That really invites a walkable environment, because when we first looked at the 2018 or 2017 strategic plan, it was really highlighting and wanting to activate Fraser Avenue towards the river. And we feel by providing the retail, having those ground floor units there on the Doc Suzy building and having an 8-foot sidewalk, we're really going to draw people from Highway 40 to want to go explore what's back there. So that's just a little bit about the project's kind of intent. And then the other slides I'll bring up are more so kind of showing these 3D renderings of the building, and these will be closer to what it really will look like. And so again, this is the building that's facing Highway 40 with all of the retail. We had some decisions to kind of change materials to highlight corridors and make the building roof line sloped so that it could, one thing you'll notice actually is the roof line always slopes in from the edge. And we're very conscious of snow melt dripping onto sidewalks, dripping onto people's patios, dripping onto 40. So that's all sloping in, and then also kind of blending in with what's around us with the mountains in the background when you're looking north, south, east, and west from the site. Then I'll just kind of show. This is probably, I'll show you the elevation for the Doc Suzy building.
Greg, can you talk a little bit about the height of the building? And also
Yes.
the external building materials, please?
Yeah, so Krista, correct me if I'm wrong.
44 is the highest
So
we're at.
40,
That's the stair towers.
yeah, so 44 is the highest we're at. That's at these stair towers right here. And then I believe we're around 42 or 43 on the corners. And then in the middle section, we're probably below 40. I think we have a 12/1 run from, yeah, right at close to 40 in the middle section. And then for the materials used, I'll let Krista kind of expand on that because it was really a collaboration of tying it into what's there right now, which is the distillery, which we love the look of. So adding in some, you'll have to, I don't know the exact verbiage for the metal we're using.
So we're proposing a bonderized standing seam metal for ease of maintenance, but also the bonderized is not a painted metal. So it has more of a live quality. So when light hits it, it's not flat and dull. So you don't have this big overwhelming surface of a very flat, overwhelming color. It has more of a natural metal aesthetic. So if the sun is setting, the building's going to glow orange. When the snow is blowing, the building's going to darken up a little bit, but it'll always have a living quality to it. And the same with the Core 10 rusted metal. It's the rusted metal lends itself towards a natural aesthetic, not once again a painted flat type of surface or metal. So trying to make everything feel alive and natural. Same with the wood, wanting to do like a clear coat or stain on cedar so you can see the actual wood grain and quality of wood coming through. So everything has, it seems like it came from somewhere other than a factory. Oh, and CMU, that's the other.
Yeah, one thing I'll point out too, this is changing just a little. We won't have quite as many openings, but this elevation is showing what's going to be facing that pocket park. And we're actually going to have a much larger section here for a mural. And so we're hoping to work with the group that you guys have established here in Fraser to help contract work on that mural. And we're really excited. That's going to be just a really cool defining space in the development, is that little pocket park with the mural space. So yeah, that's kind of materials.
So before we open it up for public comment, does anyone on the commission have any other questions for the applicant?
I do. Who's going to manage the deed restriction?
So again, we'll work with the town on what they prefer. I've done low income rent restricted deals before where it's just governed by a land use restriction agreement. I don't know if that's what the town wants and what makes sense for the deed restriction, but that's what I had envisioned. But we're happy to use any sort of document the town feels is appropriate.
And that's like a once a year check-in or something like that.
So it would be, and depends. I've only used it on like ticket low income housing tax credit deals. So there's different. There's a term, an initial term where it's governed by the federal government, where it's more restrictive. It's annual verification, and then there's an extended compliance period with the state where it's self-attestation, and you have to provide the documents when the income documents when the tenant moves in. And then it's attestation from the property manager that that tenant is still in place. But again, we're willing to work with the town on kind of how that process works. I think we would probably just follow, how CHAPA regulates when they become the regulating body. So, but again, happy to work with the town on what they feel is right for those deed restriction units and how they're governed.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the deed restriction program that the town has, for better or for worse, I mean, that's really just for ownership. So this is going to be, the town's going to have to work through how that's going to work. And I would think that the town would want that finalized before the final plat gets recorded.
Because this is the first one of its kind.
Yes. And that, again, that program is really structured more toward home ownership. So
Right.
someone needs to work on that.
My concern is that it would become cumbersome for the town of Fraser. And we don't want that to happen. So we just want, what I believe we would want is just a year check in. And
Yeah,
your management company or you guys are managing.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah, what we would propose, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
Yeah,
there.
no problem.
What we would propose is the simplest form possible is an agreement on what the check-in is at application and occupancy. So we would have the limit set by CHAFA and AMI and agree with the town, and then have our management company, or if we're self-managing, make sure they hit those check boxes and can provide that documentation to the town, with the idea that it should be as hands-off as possible, as long as we're hitting those AMI and affordable unit standards.
Great, thanks. Will the parking be designated parking per unit?
So
Or
the
is it-
only
or is
thing,
it the parking, is it designated per unit for the residential?
so for the garage, we're thinking of keeping it for that building for the residents, just to kind of not create any sort of issues there. Oh, here, yeah.
One of this reminds me a lot of Hideaway Station in Winter Park. And one of the issues that I saw there was that it was kind of a free for all to begin with, and then they actually put up signage for designate for the residents no longer had a place to park because all the business people visiting the businesses were. So that's a concern.
So
with the limited parking.
our plan is to have at least one dedicated space per unit, and that will have signage so that they know where they can park. And then we're figuring out exactly which of the spaces are going to be for that. But I think we think kind of the interior parking lot and the parking garage make the most sense for resident parking. But then we have some ADA units, ADA spaces in there as well. And we're actually looking at creating a couple more ADA on the street. So we'll have more than enough units in the lot to service the tenants. So that probably makes the most logical sense to do all or most of those for the tenants. And then we have quite a bit, as I'll show you right here on the site plan, additional spaces that can service the retail. So looking here, this is Highway 40. So we have the parallel spaces off of Highway 40. There's 5 that we have conceptualized there. The Fraser Avenue spaces, and you'll see this is what Catherine was mentioning. The majority of these are in that deeded land, and then slight bit going towards the drainage pan. But we have, I believe, 7 spaces here, and then another 5 spaces on Doc Susie Avenue. So we have 4 between Doc Susie and what would be a right of way into our site, and then 1 off the alley on Doc Susie. So surface spaces in the site itself, I think we have 9 garage spaces and then 16 surface parking spaces within the site itself.
And one of the things that we're proposing is to have, we're going to have a couple of designated spots in the garage for EV charging. And we're also proposing some spots there along Fraser Avenue that would also have future EV charging as well for the community.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anybody else on commission?
I just want to clarify. I think you answered my question. My question was, you're going to designate the two one-bedroom units on the ground floor of the Doc Susie facing building as your deed restricted.
Correct.
In going through the math on calculating the parking spaces, it didn't appear that there was a one space allocated for each one of those one-bedroom apartments. But I think what you're saying is you're going to create an ADA space on the street for those two.
Yeah.
Because
so-
if you go through the calculations, you come up with 29, but if you add in a parking space for each one of those one-bedroom apartments, that would be 31.
Yeah, so I had the calculation myself as 31. So I think we may have been missing those two ADA units and then 10 for rounding up, 10 for the retail with no reductions for proximity to transport or shared parking for commercial. So we're at 30, that's 41 combined. And on this site plan, we're providing for 42.
Okay, all right, so
that you are
they're
correct. The
included.
29 does not include the two
Correct.
ADA units.
Okay.
Or sorry, one ADA compliant one bedroom and one other one bedroom, both of which are deed restricted.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
This is exactly what.
This is exactly
this is
what
exactly
we've
what
been
the town
dreaming of.
Fraser Was looking for, so I'm super excited that you guys are here. It's-
Mhm.
I love that you're using local architects because they, they've nailed.
We wouldn't be here if we
Kind of
weren't, for
aesthetics
sure.
of-
So yeah, we're stoked on that too.
and
I agree.
Yeah.
Mhm. Let's see.
Public?
Oh, I know. I just want to make sure Margaret and Sam don't have anything to add or have any questions.
I think Margaret's waving. Yeah, she's on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great, great. I was feeling stifled. Quick question. I have a couple questions. You mentioned tax credits. Is this a tax credit project or not?
No, I was just referring to a previous project I'd been a part of where they did deed restrict for rent units.
Okay, I was just curious about that because I didn't think we'd had any tax credit projects in Grand County. We might, but anyway. The other question I had is I noticed in the lawyer's comments, they mentioned that the appearance was not in keeping with the funky Fraser appearance that we were trying to achieve. And I was just wondering what specifically did to address that comment.
So yeah, what I believe the comment was just to address how we are meeting those requirements. And I'll let Krista kind of speak to how we are. I can speak to it. I think we are delivering a very cool building. We're going to incorporate that mural space that's going to give an awesome pop of color to that ground floor space on the Doc Susie building. I think our choice in material selection is going to create a very warm and welcoming building facade, just given the incorporation of wood and different types of metals to really soften what will be a large building compared to what's already here. But kind of the mixing and matching of metals and woods, I think is going to create just an awesomely, beautifully appealing building. So yeah, that in the mural space, I think it'll be one of the funkiest buildings in Fraser personally.
Yeah, and what I would add, obviously fun and funky is fairly subjective. But one thing that we did focus on, aside from just the aesthetics, was the balconies and gathering spaces. So the way I look a little bit at fun and funky is when all your neighbors are out on their balconies together, Or one of the things that what Peter was very cognizant of is the entrances to the units, creating a neighborhood feel that you're only sharing your stair core with a few other neighbors. So it's kind of this fun neighborhood vibe, more so than going out and using bright oranges or anything on the building, which I think, I mean, in my opinion, the goal is that every night at 5 o'clock when it's sunny out, people are in the park on their balconies enjoying a beer. And that to me is fun and maybe not funky, but funky enough. So we wanted to be very cognizant of the community aspect of it.
Depends on what they're wearing.
And I might add that, one of the options was to create one big building with kind of a corridor in the middle, parking all underneath or in the back.
Boring.
And you really don't have security. So from my own experience living in a condo in Boulder, we have these stair towers. So as Kevin alluded to, there's 4 units. So you get to know your neighbors and there's a security aspect there. But, and also then breaking the building apart, we were able to kind of screen some of the parking. And we were also able to create kind of this small community space in the middle, which we really hope, people from all over will come and use those patios and really activate the downtown.
Sam, just checking to see if you have any questions or comments.
He's holding something up.
He said, please mute my audio.
Okay, I think I'm on now. Thank you. No, I just wanted to thank the applicants for the presentation. Looks marvelous. I think it's going to be a great addition to the town. Best luck.
Thank you. I'd agree with Sam. It's a great building. It's gonna look really nice. You guys did a great job. Thanks.
And parking is a challenge for the town of Fraser and will continue to be. So I think between the planning commission and the board will be keeping that on our radar and hopefully addressing it at a larger scale in the relatively near future.
I'd like to add one last thing, and not to be redundant to what others have complimented you on your planning and your design and your patience. But the one thing that struck me in the materials that I read and your one-page narrative was the mural space and how you intend to be part of the community. In the corporate speak world where I came from, that's called corporate social responsibility. And people who have that come into the community and take on that corporate social responsibility, being part of the community, that's what we were looking for. And I think you hit a home run with this plan.
Thank you very much.
So just real quick, before we move to public comment, I'm just wondering if we want Kevin to comment on the drainage. Sure. Why don't we address that because it's already been asked.
That's what I was thinking. I just didn't want to speak right after Krista was so eloquent there.
Talk about drainage and grading. But in all seriousness, hey, Catherine, what a great run. It's been a long time together. So you're gonna be missed. Good luck in the future.
Thank
for
you.
And
sure.
don't forget to state your name.
Kevin Vectorelli with JVA Consulting Engineers in Winter Park. The questions that were raised via email were around some of the drainage conveyances along the existing rights of way, essentially, first and
Greg, you want to
foremost.
pull up that site plan again? Would that be helpful,
Sure.
please?
Commenting to when the roads were paved back in the early 2000s, if I recall, that the drainage swales and the paving that was there, they were citing some dissatisfaction, I guess, with that. And so I guess our point to that is that we're matching into the character here with this. We're tying into those existing curb cuts, adding the sidewalks where appropriate, but that we feel that, adding in the curb and gutter for the surrounding property would be above and beyond what's needed. It's tying in with what's existing. So that was the first question. I believe I've captured it. Would you agree, Catherine? That was the question?
I think so.
That feels like
So
it.
This will be something that the town will be doing, I'm assuming. Adding the curb and gutter on Doc Suzie to the east side to protect those homes that are on the downslope side.
It requires a bit more than that, I would say. It's going to take a kind of a regional drainage study to look at that, to understand the capacities, and so that's leading me right to my next answer here
Okay.
with the drainage component. So this project is designed to accommodate up to and including the 100-year storm. We're incorporating a low impact design element, infiltration basin, basically, so that the storm water is going to percolate into the ground, very similar to what we did for Barry on his property for the Fraser Still. And it's working beautifully, I would guess, right? Nope. Sorry,
Can you
sir.
describe that?
Yeah, so the drainage patterns are basically flowing to the corner of the site, and basically it's collected in a series of swales and a series of inlets in the parking lot, regular old inlets that you see everywhere. They're then routed to an underground corrugated metal pipe, essentially with an aggregate base course around the whole exterior of that, with a Mirify to basically filter out the sediment and those sorts of things to make sure the sediment's not going to be. So we're designing. It's almost exactly the same. Thank you.
Great.
And then so we're treating water quality, and then we're also treating up to and including the 100-year storm. Should there be a larger than 100-year event, we design very similar to what we did for there to overflow along those natural corridors, right? We have a responsibility to allow that water to continue along the historic paths. And so that's what we're doing to answer the question to the neighbor that had asked that. We're not going to be increasing any flows to their property. Matter of fact, we're decreasing them by detaining them, infiltrating them. Should the larger than expected design storm come through, we're allowing safe passage. I think that was the bulk of those questions. Peter, do you remember if there was anything else there? I think that was it. So, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll open it up to the public, just kind of set some ground rules for the public. If you're going to speak, please step up to the microphone, state your name. You don't have to physically say your physical address, but just you could tell us where you're from. And if you get long-winded, I will cut you off. We like to limit public comments to 3 minutes. If you do have specific questions for the applicant, what I will do is make a list, and then we'll have the applicant come back up at the end to answer the questions. So that way there's not a bunch of jumping up and down of applicant versus public. So who would like to start? Oh, and before you start, I do want to say thank you very much to the public. We really appreciate participation in these meetings, and we're very grateful that you have attended. Come on up.
I'm Deborah Anderberg. I'm a neighbor to your beautiful new building. It's going to be nice. And I'm happy that we're getting that building. So, and I think it'll be great. I have problems with my own problems. And if you want to take, I have a few questions. First of all, the drainage. I live in Sun River. We get a lot of water, melting snow under the fence and into our yard. And so that's a problem. There's no drainage that should go, they build up on the path, which, is the only reason I live there. And they build that up every year, which is nice, and make the path wonderful, but that keeps all the water on our side, so it doesn't have a chance to go in the river. So it'd be nice if that was taken care of, that type of flow. And then there's the, oh, you have your green space, so snow storage. We last winter got blocked in on both sides of our emergency entrance and exit to that whole area. And I don't know where the snow came from. Well, I know where most of it came from, but we had a 1 lane, and I don't know if a fire truck could get through on one side. And then on the side of this building, they blocked it completely. So because our parking area is narrow, we do need both those entrances open. So I'm worried about snow storage. If they have a place for your snow storage, because we do for ours. And then trail access. Let me see. From your building, is there going to be a designated trail access? Because you have one over by the water company there, but it's not real welcoming. And you have the road where you took out that house that goes directly to the trail, but no one ever knows where to go. So they ride into our area and ride through the yard, lift up their bikes over our fence, and then get on the trail. We need something for that. And you're going to add a few more people. And I hope, a more active downtown, but the city has to start taking care of those things too. And it makes a big difference in our quality of living when we're out there and we're happy in our home. And then everyone comes and invades our area. So those are the questions I have. And another thing, are you going to have pets? I mean, if they own it,
Yeah,
they get to have a pet, right?
I don't see why we wouldn't. We may have a restriction on size and breed. But again, we'll work with the property manager, kind of what's market. But yeah, we're all animal lovers on our team. So.
Yeah, we are. But when you live on the trail, you see a lot going on.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't pick up after themselves, which is really sad. Really sad. It's bad for the water. It's bad for everything. So
we agree. Yeah. I mean, you could look into incorporating a doggy bag station or something on the site. I think would be super helpful since we have the green space. Dogs are probably
I
get
know. I was
attracted
happy
to
to
it.
see that. I was happy to see
Okay,
that.
okay, so
That's it. Thank you.
who's next?
Almost everybody knows me. I'm Barry Young. I live in Fraser and own the distillery adjacent to the property. And I'm also on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, which we are working to reinvigorate. It's had kind of a pause. And from an economic development standpoint and a housing standpoint, we're very much in favor of this project. We need more housing and we need more critical mass of businesses, retail and restaurants in our area. My big concern here is about parking. If any of you have been to either our restaurant or the Creek or Camber on a Saturday afternoon, on a Saturday evening, on a Sunday or Friday night, you'll see that parking is already a crisis. So thank you for bringing that up. This is going to make it far, far worse. If you go through the arithmetic, this is something that you all are following the rules. We actually exceed the rules. We were required to have 14 spaces. We have 20. And it's not enough. And we have a number of employees who live in Fraser and walk to work in inclement weather. And it's still not enough. And if what I've heard through the grapevine, as far as who's the corporate group that's going to rent the space, if it's correct, what I've heard through the grapevine, they're not walking distance to work, so they're gonna have to drive to work and park in this space. So if you go through the numbers, in particular, the positive aspect of having 2 bathrooms for every unit means there could be 2 automobiles for every unit, and the numbers just don't work. So it's not necessarily upon the developer to deal with this, because like us, we've exceeded the rules. It sounds like just barely following the rules, and that's what rules are for. The street parking that you're counting is already utilized 100+% on Friday nights, Saturday days, Saturday nights, and Sundays. So if we as a town don't address this, then any retailer that's looking at your space, if they spend the due diligence time to come and see what's going on your most important days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they're going to go, there's no place to park. So again, it's not your problem, it's our problem. So if we don't find a solution to this, our economic development will not be what we want it to be. And I know there are people amongst us who feel that we want this to be a walkable town. And again, we have a number of employees who do walk to work. But we have a number of employees that live in Granby and Winter Park and Tabernash, and they have to drive to work. And you're going to have a number of people living in this property that are driving pretty far to work, whether they work at the resort or out in Tabernash or Devil's Thumb or whatever. So we've got to address this. And I can tell you right now, just looking at the parking situations, the older businesses in town, like Fisher's and Camber, they didn't have to have parking. So they have very little. So all those individuals are parking on the street. So I'm sure everybody's aware of that. I'm glad you brought that up. But if this is going to be open for ski season next year, we really need to address this very, very quickly. The only other thing I want to address is construction noise. Obviously, that's going to be very important to us. So at the appropriate time, I'd like to understand what kind of fencing or barriers you can put up between your construction project and our business, especially in summer. We have our patio full. So I'm not going to actually address that today, but it's something I'd like y'all to come and chat with us about. If we lose all our patio business, that would be catastrophic. So parking.
Thanks, Barry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I live in Old Town. I walk to work, like Barry said. But I've lived here for about 6 years, and the housing is definitely an issue. I kicked myself for not investing earlier. But I was just speaking to comments I heard. You guys are planning on owning this and operating this for the foreseeable future, just because I know things can change hands because of opportunities, but it sounds like you guys are going to run it right, and I would hate for it to fall to the wrong hands.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone on Zoom who would like to comment?
Any comment, Peggy?
I was just going to say, what about Peggy Smith? Anybody? I just want to make sure we don't miss anyone on Zoom.
Gina, I had a question. Did you want to allow Baseline if they have any questions, since they'll be the ones taking over the project after Catherine leaves?
I don't know if they have questions. I guess we could allow that.
I would recommend that you save Baseline, since they're a contract employee. They're equivalent to staff at this point, to just limit this to the public comment.
Okay.
That way you can close the public comment and
Okay.
open that up.
So, okay, besides Baseline, is there anyone else on Zoom? I don't want to miss anyone. Okay, so if all the public's made their comments, if Kevin, if you want to, I've got the list of questions. I'm sure you do too.
I think I do. And do you mind if I work backwards?
Sure, go ahead.
Perfect. Well, Nicole, I'll address yours first. We're long-term holders, and that's our vision and goal. Obviously, if someone comes along 5 years from now and says they'll offer us 100 million, we'd be crazy not to take it. But for us, we're invested in the valley and want to be here as long as possible. So we have no plans, nor have ever talked about this trading hands and going into what we think would be an evil landlord or condoed off. So we feel very confident that 5 years from now, we'll be the owner of this property, 10 years from now as well. Barry, addressing yours, I guess, thank you for the kind words on parking. I completely agree. This is now our problem as well. And I think really you look at urban development and parking is a huge issue. And we wanted to get to as many spaces as possible. And that's where we landed. But you're right. Retail coming here on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday is tough and tough to find a place to park. I think that's something, a larger conversation that as we are more and more invested in the community and the success of not only our project, but the community as a whole, we want to work together with everyone to see if there is a private public partnership solution to address. I mean, it's a great point. And then the last, moving up the list, I think the drainage, what Kevin Vecchiarelli spoke about, I have no idea what you said. I do not understand engineering talk, but to my understanding, it sounds like this will actually be a solution as opposed to exacerbating the problem on drainage down into the river.
The on-site drainage for sure is taken care of. Unfortunately, I think what you're experiencing is an issue of operations and maintenance. Ed, I'm sure you don't want to hear me say that, but I think that's what it is. As part of the roads and the other drainage systems that are through there and on the trail as well. So hopefully with, some downtown revitalization and some different operations and maintenance plans, we can try to address some of that. But the site drainage and the site snow storage itself is self-contained is the best way to say that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and just to add on snow storage, we have the adequate amount of snow storage space for a clearable area, just because I know that was one of your comments.
Yeah, and to the snow storage, I think with the drainage system, our snow storage site plan is not up anymore, is right in the middle of the site. So you don't have to worry about overflow snow storage on the side or anything like that. The one I do want to address, which I think is very interesting, is the signage and pets, and it kind of is a overarching issue. In our experience, is over communication is better. So for us, I mean, that goes back to parking, designated parking spots, 2-hour limits, that kind of stuff that starts to filter folks out. As far as pets, same thing. Using the disposable bags at the park, stuff like that, simple things that, while we can't completely solve the problem, will help mitigate it. And then the trail system access, I know exactly the trail you're talking about and might have cut it once or twice in my day. But that's another thing, is from this site, and the idea is that this creates clear access on Fraser Avenue to the right trailhead, right? So over signage, potentially signage on our property that directs our tenants or people that park there to the right trailhead, so they're not trespassing on private property, I think is extremely important and something, I mean, we're happy to incorporate. So I think if that answers all the questions,
Yeah,
I don't know if I missed.
I think you hit the whole list.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Could I add to mine again, please?
Sure. Come up to the microphone, please, Barry.
I forgot, Barry Young again. I forgot one thing I wanted to add. If you all go back and look at the original plan for the Art Center site plan, it had parking on the north side, the south side, and the east side. And I actually talked to Sarah when you all were doing the park to see if we could add parking at the time. And that conversation didn't go very far. But there is a very simple short-term solution to this, because we don't even have that large building even with a large building, if you remember, there were a significant number of spaces allocated in a U shape. Actually, all four sides, now they think about it. We made the driveway between our building and the Art Center building wide enough so that there could be parking where that little drainage ditch is now. So this is a solvable problem, a problem with a solution if we add the number of spaces to the park that was originally designated for the Art Center. So that's one thought and easy solution that we could implement before this retail space is opened up. And again, I'm going to just tell you from my experience, I was talking to some customers, telling where I was heading tonight, and they talked about parking. So this is something that our customers are already talking about, and please, we have to fix this. Thank you.
And I have one more question for the applicant. This is borderline, but in the rental contracts, I'm assuming that there would be mandates on the number of vehicles that they'd be allowed for their units.
Yeah.
Something in the rental contract so they know.
Yeah,
that,
so
yeah,
we-
you can only have one car, or you can have 1.5 cars.
Yeah. What we like to do is disincentivize tenants monetarily for parking. So there would be a restriction on total cars. They can have 7 cars to a unit. But we'd go a step further that anything above 1 spot, or potentially we're debating this, 1 spot costs some nominal amount, which has historically been shown to slightly decrease the number of cars in a lot if you have to pay an extra $20 a month or $50 a month. So that's something on the parking side that we're trying to implement that would allow, the goal, right, is we want everyone to take the black line across the street. I don't know how realistic that is, but we'll definitely have a limit on the number of cars. And then the idea is to have some kind of monetary penalty for over parking. So if you have 2 cars. So does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else before we close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
So there were 8 conditions that were listed in the staff briefing that carried over into the draft resolution that was in your packet. I'll go ahead and read those conditions. Number 1, applicant to resubmit civil drawings in conjunction with the final plat submittal. 2, address review comments in Whitmer Law Firm memo dated 4/16/2022 and revise documents accordingly, which again is in the works. I forgot to mention this during my presentation, but CDOT is requiring an access permit, and the applicant is moving forward with this. I think they have submitted it. We had some discussion on whether or not the town or the applicant should be the applicant on that access permit. And because of the transition that's happening here at the town hall, we would prefer that the applicant is the real applicant on the access permit for CDOT. They've requested a letter from us, Ed, so that'll probably be sent over to you because it was sent to Russell and I don't know that there was any response. Address the agency review comments in the packet. Again, most of the comments in there didn't have any objections to the project, but let's just go over those again. A construction guarantee agreement seems more suitable in this instance than a subdivision improvement agreement, because again, you're not actually subdividing the property, although you've fallen under the major subdivision requirements. So the construction guarantee, we haven't really talked about that much with the applicant, but it's a similar agreement like a subdivision improvement agreement. Well, there will be a timetable for any of the improvements, and there'll be an engineer's cost estimate that will be agreed to. You guys will submit and we'll approve that, and then we'll collect surety, and that will be recorded prior to the building permit being issued. Confirm the exterior light is dark sky compliant. I don't think there was much information in the submittal on that. The applicant shall pay park and school impact fees prior to the recordation of the final plat. And in terms of process, this needs to come back to planning commission for the final plat, and then it will go on to town board. The applicant needs to resubmit all the final plat and site plan documents, and this will be scheduled for a planning commission once a complete application has been submitted. And I want to say for the record, as the last project that I'm going to be involved with, except for tying up loose ends next week, it's really been a pleasure to work with you guys. It's just been very open communication, honest communication. You've taken our suggestions into consideration for your whole overall plan. And again, just super excited that this is happening down here. I mean, it almost brought me to tears as you were standing up going over all this. So it really is, you know, what the community said they wanted for this area. And just super excited for the transition. And again, I think, you know, Barry's business was kind of the catalyst for making that happen. And again, all those CDOT improvements down there, but it's been a long time coming, and great to work with you guys all. So super appreciate all the effort that you guys have put into it and all the meetings that we've had. So thank you.
I too echo what Catherine has to say, but to be honest with you, I don't think this project could have been as successful without Catherine leading the efforts from the town staff side. Yes, I attended some of those early meetings as a spectator, to be honest with you, for the most part. And unfortunately, I'm the one that suggested the one building with the interior hallway. So I'm glad that didn't happen there. But Catherine's done a beautiful job throughout this whole process, working with the team, which has been a pleasure to work with you. You know, taking our code and applying all those overlays and finding solutions that matches the downtown strategic plan, that matches what the town board wants in our downtown there. So Catherine, thank you for that. I thought you did just an excellent job on that. And also want to thank you for all of the time and all the other projects that you've done for this community. You know, you've really put us on the map. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Fraser Planning Commission Resolution number 2022-0401, a resolution approving the preliminary plat and major site plan for, is it really with a G? Castlig on Main, 4060 Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah. it's
Good
great.
job, you guys.
Yeah,
Good
it's
job.
Exciting.
Getting the final plat back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want their building permit next month. So let's get the final plat in. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Gee, if we get to a spot where we get old business, I have a question. I wanted to get an update on a past issue. The piece of land over there where Hilly's had all the cars parked. I
It's
understand
sold.
it's sold, but what's happening to the lot?
Ace Hardware is gonna do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
Oh, they bought it?
As long as
Yeah.
it fits in our zoning.
They bought it.
Yeah.
Parking.
They need room. They already provide a lot of parking.
So do we have anything for open forum? Open forum? Anyone? Nothing to say, Parnell?
Nope. Nothing.
I told them to be kind tonight.
I'm always kind. I'm always a nice guy. It's a little rough on the exercise.
So, other business, I wanted to bring up parking town, thinking ahead to town. So does the town own a small piece of property down in that area? Or do we own a piece of property that we can put a parking structure on?
So the
Or should
town
that-
owns about a half-acre lot at the end of Clayton Court.
Okay,
That is beautiful and pristine and would be totally the wrong place for a parking garage.
okay,
I mean, do you want a parking garage by the river?
not necessarily, but it is where all the people are.
And just-
Yeah.
We did we're getting ready to close on another piece of property, so maybe that is a better location.
Yeah, I don't know if we can put a parking structure on that because of the restrictions that come with it. Using it for deed restricted housing.
Ed, do you want to weigh in on this?
Ed Cannon, Town Manager. We are working with a property owner who reached out for the town and has a parcel of land that he wants to know what the town would like to see there. It's centrally located. It could be an option for a public-private partnership for parking where you can combine that with commercial space as well, because it is in our commercial district. So we have to return that call to see what his plans are. We'd also like to talk to both the developers of this property and also the Clayton Court property to see if we could find a way to maybe see what all those visions are for those three properties there and how that might could to play into relieving some of the parking stress. And I think by putting in a parking garage or parking structure, somewhat like what Winter Park has, which is tied to a commercial space, could open up some possibilities, for our downtown area, both of the residential and also for our businesses.
Okay, so it's on your radar and
So on our radar,
Talking about parking at the town board for
forever.
forever.
And now it's really coming in.
I mean, we were contacted yesterday about this, so.
Parking garages a couple meetings ago.
Last meeting
The last meeting, the last 2 or 3 meetings.
and the next one.
And we'll talk about it again.
Okay.
I would fight tooth and nail to not have a parking garage on that half acre, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
yeah,
No.
down by the river.
Might end up with a bunch of vans down by the river.
Since I was unable to get in speaking wise earlier, I'd also like to say thank you to Catherine. Thanks for all your work and dedication. You made it look easy. And I know you sweated blood every time you appeared before any of these meetings. So good luck to you. We're going to miss you.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate your words.
So any
What's that, Antoinette?
I was just going to echo Sam's comments, Catherine.
Thank you. Don't make me cry.
do we have any other business? Future agenda items?
I moved to adjourn.
Parking.
Yeah, parking.
Parking, more parking. But I have a motion on the table. Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?